of your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. So let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rate supply.
Questions for our next guest pouring in to the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, but keep them coming at 64686. Russo Radio kind enough to join us now via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. When do you head over to Italia?
February 2nd. Uh-oh, are you sick?
This is actually the late vestiges of an ongoing head cold that went into the chest and generally affects my voice, correct?
Oh, man, you should see the team right now. Like, players have been sick.
Really?
The entire broadcast team's been sick.
Ooh.
The PR department's been sick. So I guess that's what's happened. Yeah, since December 27th. I've somehow avoided it so far, which means it's coming.
I think it's the coffee diet. I think it's the...
I know.
That's what it's doing it, maybe.
I was talking to Ryan Hartman about that. He's like, how many Americanos do you drink a day? I'm like, 4. And he's like, what? So yeah, I guess he doesn't, I am a picture of health, but he doesn't, I guess, drink caffeine unless it's a game night after 3:00. So, and then a bunch of players were telling me that I need to do the same thing. So I think players are starting to get worried about me.
Yeah, that's very well. They always there's deep and abiding respect. They're concerned about your welfare, exactly. For sure. There's no doubt about that.
So yeah, I head over February 2nd. Which is crazy because I feel like I've been gone for a month from Minnesota, and we've been 14 days, and I think I'm gone 23 days for the Olympics. So it's going to be a lot of travel for there, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep.
Trying to keep my eye on the ball and not get distracted because there's so many good Wild coverage that Joe Smith and I have had here this month. But really looking forward to covering the Olympics. And what's really neat is the Wild, I'm obviously there to cover the women's hockey and then USA men's, but the Wild have 10 players there. So that's going to be really cool that I'll at least be able to provide local coverage for Wild fans that are going to be starved for 2-3 weeks of very little coverage. So, as long as it doesn't get in the way of all my other stuff, I plan to really pay attention to everything with the 3 Americans that the Wild have there, the 4 Swedes that they have there, maybe 5 if Johansson gets the call. And, they have 1 German player, 1 Czech player, 1 Slovak player as well. So it's going to be fun.
Well, I will tell you, I think we've maybe talked about this before. I think I ended up covering 7 Olympics, I think 4 winter, 3 summer. And I don't know that I enjoyed any experience more than the Winter Olympics because for me, it was cool to get away from the bats and balls to more esoteric sports. Not that hockey is that esoteric, but I'm talking about the other ones in addition to hockey. The scenery, the backdrop usually was aesthetically very, very pleasing as well. Places like Albertville, France. That's how old I am. And I just think, I don't know. I think it's the freshness of it that if you're covering all the Olympics, you're covering a lot of sports that really don't spend that much time, covering the rest of the year. So it's refreshing after all the, the football, basketball, baseball, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, man, 92 was that your first Olympics or what even preceded that?
My first Olympics was Sarajevo was my first Winter Olympics, which goes back obviously even further to 84.
Wow, amazing. This is going to be my third, and I was supposed to cover Beijing, but that was, the NHL pulled out because of the pandemic, so I missed that one. But I covered Salt Lake, and I've covered Vancouver, and, I'm really looking forward to just seeing one outside the United States and in Milan. Unfortunately, with the what was cool in Vancouver is, the men's hockey starts about a week and a half after the Olympics actually start. So the first week or something, I went up to Whistler and did some Lindsey Vonn stories. Yep. I did a luge story. I was there the day that poor kid died from the Republic of Georgia, if you remember that, in the sort of, for lack of a better term, exhibition part of the luge. But I was shadowing Tony Benshoff a lot up there too, because that was he's from White Bear Lake and that was his last Olympics. So, and then I had a blast covering obviously the NHL, got to see Parisi force overtime there in the gold medal game. And this one's going to be amazing. Just incredible players going over from the NHL. First time since 2014 that the NHL is sending players there. You have the backdrop of the issues with the construction of the arenas. And one of my colleagues, Chris Johnson's over there right now for the test events that start the next 3 days, starts tomorrow. So it's going to be a blast to just be there and cover hockey.
No question about that. Well, we have not talked in a while.
And by the way, we have at The Athletic, we have an army of people going over there, including one of our local editors who's our head Olympic editor, Zach Pierce. So it's going to be a blast. That's
even better. I've told this story before. I don't know that I've told you. If you go all the way back to the Sarajevo year, there weren't as many American reporters as I think we've come to expect in Olympics afterwards. And in fact, there was a group, like a consortium, that decided to sort of pool their resources, several newspapers around the country, Dallas, Philly, several others. So they kind of rented out a room where we could all work in terms of the actual writing part. And then I think at that point, then they had all those papers. We had access to sending our stuff in, and they had good technical support and so forth. But there are also some folks that weren't American. There were a couple of French reporters in there, etc. And the one of the funniest moments in my journalistic career was where there's several of us in there on deadline. Well, not really on deadline, but writing, and we can hear a reporter. I think it was in French. I can't remember. It could have been Spanish, might have been French, maybe it was Eastern European. Who knows? And they're yelling at whoever they're talking to into the phone. There's some kind of dispute that's broken out between this writer and his editor. And there's a writer who goes way back. I think he was a legendary in Pittsburgh named Ron Reed. And as soon as the French reporter, slammed down the phone, Reed looks at him and says, "Editors are a-holes in any language, aren't they?" And we all just cracked. It's just so perfectly played. We just cracked up. The whole thing was just, we could all relate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I will say I've always gotten along with my editors, date back to the script.
Yes.
So and the Sun Sentinel. I have really been lucky over the years. I was actually talking to somebody about that the other day, that I've never, ever not gotten along with editors. I had
good for you.
Incredible editors at the Strip, incredible editors at The Athletic.
In some cases, it's just sort of built-in natural friction that everybody's doing their job, so there's going to be some times where some things happen.
So I don't know if you remember this name, Robes Patton, but he was a longtime Miami Heat writer down in Miami.
I do remember that name. Yes.
Yeah, and Robes, actually, the press room is named after him, and really sad, died of a brain cancer. But when I first started as like a 15-year-old at the Sun Sentinel, I had my cubicle next to him at the Delray Beach office, and he saw me reading one of my high school articles in the paper, and he said, "I have one piece of advice for you." And he goes, "Always look to make sure your article's in the newspaper, but don't read it, because it's only going to stress you out and tick you off and make you angry at the editors." And because, especially at a newspaper where they're cutting for space. And things like that. And I honestly have lived up to that. I have never read one of my articles. Like I make sure it appears. And that's it. And that's probably why I don't fight with editors, because even if there are editing mistakes and there are things cut, I never know about it.
It's a very wise decision. Yeah. And ultimately, I ended up doing that here, because any time I would deviate from that norm, invariably, I'd see my ending cut off, or I'd see my lead rearranged in a way that had nothing to do with what I was trying to say, which made it easier to go back to. I can't look, because I'm going to lose my mind if I do. So that's a good policy on your part. It's probably served you very well.
No doubt about it. But I had a blast. Like Vancouver was incredible. But to your point on how many American writers were over at the
Sarajevo,
at the Olympics. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat there. But I'm really curious to see this one, because the day and age of newspapers is different. Like in Vancouver, you had local beat writers covering all hockey, and now, I don't know. Other than one writer that I know from the Boston Globe, I don't know another hockey writer other than the Athletic that are sending people.
100% right.
It's just not that way anymore.
No.
The Star Tribune for years had Rachel Blount, incredible Olympics writer. They're not, LA Times had always Helene Elliott.
No question.
And, obviously all our stuff will be in the New York Times, but really, I don't know of too many writers from over here that are going over there. And even at the Athletic, we have 30 people coming over, editors and writers, but a lot of our people that are covering it are also from our UK bureaus. So it's not a ton of us coming over from North America. There's probably about a dozen, maybe a little more. We are going to have 5 covering hockey, which is pretty cool. And our head hockey editor is coming over. So it's going to be really neat. We're going to have an army of writers that are covering absolutely everything. It's going to be amazing.
So tell me your impressions. What struck you about the selections ultimately for the U.S. Olympic hockey teams, men and women?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much what I expected. And a lot of it is because, I talk to Bill Guerin all the time, and I just, you get accustomed to how he's thinking. I think they loved the way that they played at the Four Nations tournament and felt like the style of play is something that could translate over there. So I just didn't expect many changes. I think because of the hubbub of Jason Robertson not making the team, it really took away from the fact that they did add offense to this Olympic team. I mean, for just having Quinn Hughes there after being hurt in the Four Nations adds an immense amount of offense. And then you add Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller. But because everybody got strung up on just Jason Robertson's snub, I think that people are just thinking that he brought a bunch of checkers there. And look, I see why. People are critical just because guys like JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck haven't had the greatest years. But there's certain roles and that players play there, and they're, the Rangers head coach is the American team, and he looks at them as the American coach, and he looks at them as glue guys. Brock Nelson's had a terrific year for Colorado's, and he's going to be relied upon to play many different roles. And so I still think that this U.S. team that they're bringing is outstanding. But they're not the only team. I mean, Canada's, anytime you have a team that has McDavid and McCarr and McKinnon and Crosby, they're going to be right there as a favorite to win. And, I look at the Swedes as having a tremendous team, but I really like the team that Bill Guerin and his staff has picked.
Is the arena built yet in Italy?
So we have our writer, Chris Johnson, one of our writers, is actually over there for the test events, and he'll, it's not built. The Hockey 2 is built. That's the arena that's been built in like an industrial park, like almost like a convention center that has like 4,000 or 5,000 seats. There's going to be some men's games there, a lot of women's games there. But the main arena, Hockey 1, is not completed yet. It's going to supposedly be completed a couple days before the women's tournament starts on February 5th. They do have the ice down. They're going to have a test event the next 3 days to make sure that a lot of things take place. One, that it could stand the test of 3 games a day on this ice sheet, because you don't want to put these players at risk with soft ice, hard ice, anything that could potentially jeopardize them. They also need to make sure like where everything from the doctors are going to be to the medical, if they're, God forbid, is an emergency, getting the ambulance to the ice, how far it's going to take to get to the arena. They're going to be doing all this the next couple of days. But in terms of the actual arena, there is still a lot of concern of what it's going to be like for the fans, concessions, plumbing for bathrooms. As long as there's a press box, I'll be fine.
And coffee.
Coffee and a working Wi-Fi is what we need. So I look, this has been ridiculous, but this is very much in line with a lot of times what we see at the Olympics. At the Sochi Olympics, the arena was built, but athletes were moving into the village, and they were still basically putting hammer to nail there at the time. And so this is just what you come to expect. But I knew this was going to be a problem when I was there in August, and I took an Uber out there, and there wasn't even, it was not even, they didn't break down on the practice rink, let alone have anything close to being done on the arena. And there were no roads in there. We had to stop like 500 yards away because you couldn't get anywhere close. And I'm just like, holy mackerel, like they're supposed to have remember the original test event was supposed to be early December. I'm like, there's no way. And I think one thing that happened here is in the month of August in Italy, they literally go on siesta. Like they nobody works in August. And I don't think anybody was aware of this. And instead of, the IOC sending in construction workers from other countries like they've done in the past, they essentially weren't getting no work done on this arena. And all of a sudden the NHL got there for this NHL media tour that I was at, and all hell broke loose when they basically said, get your together. Brent
writes, NHL Russian players like Kaprizov are going to benefit from Russia not being in the Olympics. Kaprizov should be fresh for the playoffs. What do you make of that?
Well, he needs it because I have not been impressed with his play throughout this road trip. He's had a very quiet road trip. He looks like he's tired. Remember, this is somebody that missed 41 games last year. Yeah. So I think that all the rigors of this schedule right now has gotten to him. He will definitely take some time off. I've had more conversations with Kirill this trip than I've had in 5 years covering this team, just because we've had so much downtime. And even just the other day, yesterday in the locker room, I shot with him for probably 30 minutes, him and Zuccarello. And he is really looking forward to the break. He wishes he was in the Olympics. Obviously, he was the Olympic hero 8 years ago. But, he's going to do some high altitude training in Colorado. He's probably going to take some time, go down to Florida, I would assume. But to that point, I think that you're right. The Wild have 10 athletes going over to Milan. But, Zuccarello will get some fresh time off right now. Jojo will, all the Russian players on the team, Yurov, Trenyan, and Kirill. So that'll probably be good, and they don't risk injury, which you're going to need for a team that's going to have the most players in the NHL over there, if you include the 2 Iowa guys.
Matthew wants to know if you have any gut feelings on whether there's one more big move that Guerin might make. Is there a big fish? Is he gettable? What do we think?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this on the record for the radio, because I think Brett thought I was playing games with him when we were shooting the breeze, waiting.
I didn't know if you were serious or not.
Yeah, no, exactly. He asked me the same question. I said 100%. There is no doubt in my mind, just thinking of this logically, and Joe Smith and I wrote this the other day, is you don't give up 4 major pieces, all the equivalent first-round picks for Quinn Hughes, to not go and take another swing. Because right now, if you look at this team, as good as they've been playing, they are still probably less for Colorado to go get to the Stanley Cup Final. So they are a center away. And I think you owe it to Quinn to try to make that happen, to ownership, to the fans, to this team, because right now, the reality is that Yurov is just not ready to be a number 1 center, nor is Ryan Hartman. And they've got to figure out a way, I still think, without Marco Rossi here, to go add somebody that's going to help up the middle. And so whether that's a Ryan O'Reilly or something like that, or something even bigger, and that's where I think he is going to try to make a bigger move. I think he is going to look for another star. I really genuinely do, which tells you right away that he's going to mortgage probably some more of the future. So you better be right, because this team has given up a lot of picks and prospects the last couple of years. So I do think that there's likely to be more prospects on the outs here in the next month and a half, or top picks. But I do think that Bill Guerin's going to try to make something big happen.
A question coming in from 218 territory. What does Russo think about Jason Robertson being left off the U.S. Olympic team?
I feel for the kid, because I think that he has absolutely deserved it. I get, I've talked about this before, but Jason, when you watch him play, he's just never going to wow scouts. But at the end of the night, he always has 2 goals. But, he doesn't shoot the greatest. He doesn't skate the greatest. He doesn't go into those dirty areas. Although this year, all the analytics say that that's very different. But the one thing he does is score. And I just think that at the end of the day, when the coaches and the management team of the USA Hockey looked at it, they just felt they had enough of those type of players in the roles that in the role that he need to be successful. So top 6. They're not taking Gensel off. They're not taking the Kachucks off. They're not taking Boldy off. They have a lot of really quality wingers in Tage and Keller that could score. And that if you're going to put him on the 4th line or something, that it just didn't make any sense. I still think that he probably warrants being there. He scores in shootouts. That is a thing in the Olympics. But they again feel that they have enough of that, and that what they needed are guys that kill penalties, can win big draws. And that's why Robertson was left off. I do feel for the kid, and it's not completely over. There's a lot of hockey to be played between now and the Olympics, and I got to think if they lost a player in the role that they foresee him in, that he'd be one of the first calls, if not the first call.
Kraken tonight, right? We got the Kraken, right? All the action on the fan. I think it's a 9 o'clock. Is it 9 o'clock tap? I believe it's 9 o'clock.
Yep, and they are playing unbelievable right now.
That's what I was going to ask you. Give me a Kraken, Scott. What are we looking for tonight?
Yeah, they've gotten great goaltending from Grubauer. I think that, talking to a lot of the reporters today, they're still used to the Grubauer that they've seen here the last 2 or 3, so they're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, and maybe that'll be tonight. They're scoring a ton of goals lately. And they are 8-0-1 in their last 9. So they are playing really, really quality hockey. This is a building where the Wild usually perform really well in when their last time out. I think it's going to be a game. This team is road weary. This has not been the craziest trip in terms of travel. They were able to lay foundation in Southern California for 5 to 6 days. They've stayed at some incredible hotels. So it's not like they're digging ditches or anything like that, but we've been gone since December 27th. So my fear always with a long trip like that is that if you get down a goal or two, that they just pack it in, get one foot on the bus and wait to get out. But John Hines really the last 3 days since they lost in LA has been guarding against that and trying to make sure that this team sticks to it because they are in the dog days of the season and they have been sporadic lately. And their record, because they are not winning in these shootouts, looks way worse than it really has been. If, the perception would be much different if they had won those shootouts. So they've got to figure out a way to compete against a real tough opponent today and know that this is not the opponent that they usually are used to seeing, that they're playing really, really well right now. So I do think this is a big game for them to just, get back into the winning ways after losing a couple in a row. And also, they're spending the night here. They're traveling tomorrow. They don't land until 5 or 6 p.m. tomorrow. They play the Islanders. That Islander game against another team that's playing really well is going to be really tough. First game after a long road trip, kind of weird travel. So I think tonight is one of those games where you better figure out a way to win.
Do we really have $12+ million in cap space?
Yeah. I mean, so the way it works is that it's less than that, but you project it out at the trade deadline. And that's one thing, like the Wild put on Tyler Pitlick on waivers today so they can put him on waivers again before the Olympic break. What they're going to want to do is send some guys back to Iowa during that Olympic break to accrue space during that. But their hope is, because they've stayed out of LTIR all year, to do that, they're going to go out and generate enough cap space, accrue enough space at the deadline to go out and make another big swing.
Where are we injury-wise, by the way?
Damon Hunt's back tonight, so the only guy out right now is Zach Bogosian. He's day-to-day with a foot injury, went back to Minnesota. But yeah, Hunt's back tonight. They decided to send Juracek down to activate him, so he's going to have to play in his first game in 3 weeks on his offside, which will be pretty interesting to watch. But he had a really bad quad contusion. Talked to him today. He's excited about getting back in, and there's a lot of guys still playing really well on this team. Quinn Hughes has been outstanding. We got the big Hughes brothers battle on Monday night when Jack and Luke come to town. So that'll be a blast. His parents are going to be in town. So there's a lot of really cool games to look forward to if you're a Wild fan looking to come out to Grand Casino Arena here for some of these home games before the Olympics.
I think you just had a Hughesy deep dive, didn't you guys? And
we did today. Yeah, so we did a video story today with Shayna Goldman, who's one of our Joe and I. She's one of our analytics experts, and she's great at video and things like that. And we have a new deal with New York Times and Athletic with the NHL, where they essentially cut video for us. And so they really, we essentially said what we wanted, and they sent it to us, and we just basically broke down breakouts, and all the things that he's done well that's really turned this game. I mean, I was talking to Lane Lambert this morning and asked him about the Wild, and he pointed out that the Wild were 19th in expected goals before Quinn got there, and has already skyrocketed up to 5th. Their blue line, it's not just Quinn, their blue line is now tied for the first most points in the NHL since he's been here. So everything about the Wild offensively has changed for the good since Quinn got here. And so that's, by the way, what they're hoping for with the Olympics as well, is that he's just going to add more offense by being there. So I've done a lot of reporting with Quinn here this trip. I've sat down with him 4 or 5 different kind of short little interviews here to gather for other stories that we have coming. I'm getting together with his parents this weekend as well for that big Hughes brothers story. I have a lot of really, really good, colorful stuff that'll be in that Monday article as well.
Well, that's even better. Are you considering doing any mediating between one of your colleagues, John Krasinski, and Kevin Falness.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm on the Falness' side here. It's hockey. He wants more respect out of John for our incredible sport, and some of us that are around this sport have to fight for it. And John just takes some cheap shots. I saw the one lately about how it's so hard to win games in the NHL. They have to come up with different values for losses and everything. So, I'm kidding though.
No, what's funny about it is it starts so innocently, because all that happens is I lay out the guest lineup, and then if there's not a hockey person on it, Falness does his little monocle emoji guy I'm looking for any hint of a hockey guest, and then it only takes one Johnny response to the monocle emoji for it to start, and then it's almost like it doesn't end. I've said this to Blakemore as well, that he's the producer of Beyond the Pond. They should book Krasinski for Beyond the Pond, because those guys, even without him, they mix it up pretty good most of the time. So I think, even if there's a little tension involved, that's part of what's made Beyond the Pond so great.
Yeah, no, I'm all for you. First of all, Kevin is believe it or not, as much as I like to rip him, he's a very smart, very quick-witted person. So, and we know from John that he could talk about anything and be eloquent about it. Yep. So I think the two of them would actually have a blast. The problem is Pat Micheletti would have to chime in, and then we don't, that might ruin the eloquence. But and I'm saying that kiddingly, of course. But I think that'd be a great thing. John every now and then going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then John could really feel the stress that I feel being around Falness.
Yeah, you got to deal with it all the time.
Exactly.
I just want Falness on like pregame shows and postgame shows. I want him to do more live stuff. Everything's like, let's re-rack our interview with Bill Guerin for the 6th time. I mean, come on. It's just, let's have some original stuff. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And, he's all about the just hearing himself talk.
Yes.
And so, even if he has to rerun an interview that he did weeks ago.
Exactly.
Voice on there.
Awesome. Great to catch up, my friend, and we'll talk soon, and I hope a lot from Italy, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And hope everybody in the Twin Cities is doing well. This has been awful to watch from afar.
That's for sure. Yep. Thanks, sir. Thanks, Russo. Michael Russo of Russo Radio. Wild tonight. And he basically says, don't sleep on your Seattle Kraken, right? So, an opponent that's playing pretty well right now. I'm assuming the action will start at 8:45.
That is correct.
And should be 8:30. Like I said, it should be a 30-minute pregame show, but that's just me. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. We'll get back to some texts, update you on a number of controversial subjects as we continue. Our final hour of today's edition of Bumper to Bumper rolls on.
The Fan.
A showdown with Cleveland is on tap tonight as the Wolves battle the Cavs. Tip-off at 7. You can catch every shot, every dunk, every jaw-dropping play all season on the Timberwolves iHeartRadio channel.
Dan, imagine State Fair Johnny showing up for Beyond the Pond. That'd be good, too. State Fair is indeed right around the corner.
Does he have a key card? Door's open.
That's a good question.
Come on in.
I don't think Johnny's got a key card. Maybe he does.
I don't know.
Well, he shouldn't. He didn't come in enough. I mean, Glenn Mason should. In fact, I think Mace does have a key card, doesn't he?
I think he does.
So I don't think he has to wait for anybody.
The water's warm.
Yeah, somebody said they were on the same flight Mace was down to Florida, and he was in seat like 34C, and they were impressed that they just assumed he's Mace. He's going to be up with the Blue Bloods. He ain't going to be in coach, for God's sake.
Does Kerry not do flights?
That's a good question. I'll ask him that next time if indeed that was the case. Mace strikes me as a guy who's always watched his pennies. He made good money. He didn't make the kind of money that coaches do today, but he made good money. I do have I know there's a lot of serious stuff, and we've attempted to address it yesterday and today, and we might again before this program is done. but does it strike anybody else that there's on a much less important level, a kind of cruelty and danger to the weather pattern we are currently in? Because on the one hand, you could say, well, at least it's not frigid, right? That we're not below zero, either from a temperature standpoint or a wind chill standpoint, right? We're a lot of days, basically, I think yesterday we hit 40. Today, I think we were in the 30s and not particularly cold at night. But it is my theory that because of all the snow we've gotten, the intermittent snow, I think in December, did we have 20 inches total of snow? I thought I read. Whatever it was, I think there weren't a lot of major snows, but there were enough medium-sized snows. And it is my theory that I can't, vouch for this from a meteorological standpoint, but from my untrained eye, it looks like it's a cruel pattern in which it thaws some, and then we get this coating of ice that is so thin that it's diabolical. Because we get to later in the day, it freezes again. And then it goes through the same whole process that in an odd sort of way, it's worse than if we're just at 20 degree, high of 20 and a low of 5. You know what I'm saying? I mean, every place I go, there's slick spots, that you don't know it's coming. It's here, it's there. It might be freezing fog, which Guardsy talked about a couple of days ago. Might be what they call in the business black ice. And here's the other thing. Parking lots are a threat to society right now because even if they're salted well, the pattern kind of makes it impossible for there to not be skating rinks all over the place. We've had too much snow this year for it to be otherwise. I would like to hear from some of our weather experts on that point. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is at 646-86. Do you know what I'm talking about? Don't you 100%. Notice it? It's a mess.
I was slipping on the way in because there's a way I get to the station if there's traffic, and there's a normal way I go.
Yeah.
And this morning when I was coming in for the Paul Allen project, I went the traffic way.
Were you in on the project today?
I was. And I was slipping and sliding, and I was not expecting it at all. And then any Target you go to, there's slush.
Yes,
you basically have to wear boots.
You
to
have
go to
to
any
wear.
Store.
Are you old enough? Did you ever call your boots growing up galoshes?
No.
In the old days, in the 60s, they called boots galoshes, and they were the worst, the uncoolest boot ever made. If you're a kid, at least, I was forced to wear them. They had the big ass buckles on them. And here was the kicker on that style of galosh. Is a singular of galoshes galosh? I don't know. They were too tight a fit. Like I couldn't. It would be very difficult to get the boot on or off. So what the trick would be, you'd put a plastic bag over your foot and then slide your foot in with the help of the plastic bag rather than a shoehorn. And you just have so you'd have your sock, you'd have the plastic bag, and then you had the boot. But it was undignified. It was hard to get the boots on. It didn't look cool doing it. They didn't look cool the way they were buckled. Awful.
Did they keep your feet dry, though?
They did. They did do that. But you're 100% right. The slush is also it's just too messy. It's either too messy or too risky. One or the other because you could be going along, minding your own business. Oh, slush, 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 slush. And then all of a sudden there's an ice patch. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we're living right now. At which point I asked the question that's been asked many times before, what are we doing here? We should not have to make the sacrifices that we need to make in order to exist in this sort of climate. I'm convinced.
When you pull up to a grocery store and you step out and you hear squish, worst thing ever.
It is. It's bad, especially if you don't have a proper shoe, waterproof shoe or boot on. You're going, well, that shoe's dead, right? And the water just seeps right up through the heel. It's awful. It's the worst. It's the very worst thing. I got some galoshes texts that have come in. Let's get caught up with in terms of our commercial lineup, and then we'll come back and get to some of these texts. Maybe prepare for a little college football tournament conversation. University of Miami and Ole Miss, right? That's the game that's coming up tonight. And then tomorrow night, it's Indiana, of course, in the rematch against the Oregon Ducks. Stay tuned.
Never miss your chance to know what the latest sports news is, chances to win tickets, and knowing what's going on with all of your favorite KFAN shows. Follow KFAN 1003 on all of our social media channels like Instagram, TikTok, and X. Stay connected and follow the sports leader, The Fan.
Lance in Chaska checks in and writes, I remember growing up in northern Minnesota. My grandma would have us put old plastic bread bags on our feet before putting on our winter boots. Not because it was to get them off, but because they weren't very waterproof. So we used them to keep our feet dry and warmer. Our boots were used hand-me-downs. They typically didn't fit and had barely any insulation left. That sounds very believable. Dan, we had those black rubber pullovers that looked like inner tube rubber with one big zipper instead of the buckles. Yeah, that was the other it's just, that was a time where, now there's a million variations of fashion boots, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. And there just weren't that many options then. It wasn't that much of a specialty. It was more about the utility, and you just had to live with the fact that you looked like an idiot wearing them, but everybody did. So allegedly, no one was at a disadvantage if everybody was in the same position. Rube Paul writes, Dan, this weather whining is not endearing you to the ones of us's. If you keep this up, you may never catch on around these parts. That's
that ship has sailed,
Rube
certainly.
Paul, perhaps so. Best boots in the world are from military surplus paratrooper boots, 100% waterproof, rated to like negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and on the cheap. Dan, I remember those galoshes and always used Wonder Bread bags for protection. Yeah, you could use baggies or you could use Wonder Bread bags. Either one would work. I was born in 1965 and dealt a little bit with those galoshes in the early 70s. The buckles were the worst to deal with, especially while having frozen fingers. Larry Mondello guys checked in on the subject. Haven't heard from him in a while. You guys are right. You need to be careful walking anywhere. We don't need Dan suffering a fractured sacroiliac, also known as a broken butt. The term that the emergency room doctor used to me was a pierced sacroiliac, and it was one of the more painful injuries of my career. There's not any, and it was at the edge of my driveway. It was not very good. Where was the one I wanted to get to? Dan, you seem like someone that wore moon boots. No, I did not wear moon boots. Dan, slip-over ice cleats are a lifesaver. Basically a strap that goes around your boots, especially a strap that goes around, gives you traction at the arch of your feet. Well, I'll one better that. I got as a gift, actually, from my sisters, boots. I don't even know what you call them, but they're like spikes on the bottom of them, for traction. And they are revolutionary for me. My problem is I probably don't wear them often enough because I still, even though they look okay, I feel kind of clunky in them. And if you wear them on a floor, like a linoleum kind of a floor, non-carpet, people can hear you coming from like 5 miles away. It's incredible. It's like a din when those spikes hit the floor. But I have learned the hard way that that's the way to go. It seriously is. It makes now the danger though is always you can get cocky in them, and even though they definitely lessen the chance you're going to slip, slide, and fall, you still have to respect the ice enough to where don't get crazy. Don't try to do sprints in them. Don't try to go too fast. Still try to move at a deliberate pace. Do you have any of those kinds of shoes that I'm talking about?
I don't, not the spiked ones, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you can't go crazy with them. You got to respect them. And the other thing I wanted to note is I've been on the Fan for 6 years, and I think I know all the bits and all the inside stories.
Yes.
First time I've heard of a sacroiliac.
Sacroiliac?
I've never heard that one.
It's in the butt area, I think.
Yes.
Basically. It's a
joint in the tailbone region.
Here's the way it felt when I went down. What I hurt was I ended up when I went down and tumbled, I hit a hard piece of ice and right at the wrong spot. And it felt like a comet. I mean, it was a bad burning and a bad pain. But I wouldn't have, I don't even know that I knew before that where the sacroiliac was. But then they did I think they must have done, they either did an x-ray, they did something, and they said, well, yeah, this is you. But see, I didn't know you could pierce your sacroiliac. That's what he called it, a pierced sacroiliac. Is that different from breaking? Can you fracture your sacroiliac? It's a joint, right?
Yeah, so it says it's a joint. So I Googled it, pierce sacroiliac, because I was like, I want to know what
does this mean? Yeah.
And the AI overlords say that it likely refers to medical procedures targeting the sacroiliac joint for pain relief. So that can't be what it is.
No.
Unless something.
Well, maybe he misdiagnosed. I don't know. I just know it was in a lot of pain. It went away. Well, and what's funny about it, I talked about it on the air. And you know our listeners, they're always so reassuring.
Yes.
One guy texted and he said, oh my God, my wife suffered this same injury 9 years ago. And she's never recovered. I'm going, wow, thanks a lot for that. But now, fortunately for me, it's worked out a little bit better. I haven't noticed any recurring issue, but he seemed to want to go out of his way to basically say you're stuck with misery, physically speaking, for the rest of your existence.
How long ago was this?
This is like, I want to say it's like 5 years ago, something like that.
All right.
It's been a while. Quite some time.
Thought I've heard it all.
Yak tracks. And I had those, but I'm not very good. So yak tracks, as I understand them, they're big pieces of metal that you basically fit over whatever shoe you have on. You wear them on the outside of that shoe. I'm not, when it comes to spatial relations and mechanical stuff, I'm a disaster. So my luck with yak tracks is terrible because I am not good at fitting them properly over the shoe. And if you don't fit them properly, they can fall off. You can trip and fall because they're, sticking out in places that he shouldn't be. But that's what a lot of people go with. Instead of actually getting a boot, they just put the yak track over whatever shoe that they're wearing. And so it then changes the versatility of that shoe, if it makes sense.
That's what I was imagining earlier. So yeah.
The yak track?
Yeah, I've seen these before.
Okay. Dan, please check. This is a callback. This is from Bethesda, Maryland guy. Please check the Greenland U.S. Charter. Circa 1951, basically gives us free reign to do basically whatever we want militarily or otherwise. I'll have to go back and check the Greenland U.S. Charter to find out if that's true. That was part of the discussion that came up with our guy, Michael Hurley, who, by the way, he had mentioned that he's at his place out west in Montana. He sent me a photo of his spread. Man. He's doing okay. Mike Hurley, with all the consulting he's doing, looks like a beautiful place. It seems like the kind of place that Lou Nanny would own, for example. Great backdrop, mountains, looked very cozy is not the right word because it's bigger than that, but looked very, very nice. Let's pause, top of the hour break. I do want to talk a little college football. We may return to just sort of update you from the A section after a very tough day yesterday and a lot of discussion, especially via the text line earlier today as well. And we'll be able in the final half hour to set up our program for tomorrow. I don't know if we call it a Friday Football Beast, but we will have the prediction segment, which I think was done without me last week. Were you there for that?
It was. It was Sauce, Donaldson, Guardsy, and Gerby.
Oh, is that true? Oh, that's a pretty good mix.
It was good.
Yeah.
Feel the energy of the state of hockey. Minnesota Wild hockey is back at Grand Casino Arena. Don't miss the speed, the hits, the roar of the crowd. You can get your tickets now. Wild.com/tickets. Wild.com/tickets.
6 o'clock, half hour. Do you know if on any of our sister stations, we have a vast array of fan and fan radio network affiliated stations, all available to you via the free iHeartRadio app. Whether we will have coverage of tonight's CFP semifinal game between Ole Miss and who's Ole Miss playing?
Miami.
University of Miami. tonight. Do we have that on any of our stations?
I don't. I believe Guardsy's on the plus at some point.
Golden Gopher women's basketball?
Yes.
Yeah. So unlikely.
Wolves are on the iHeart.
Oh, that's right.
Wolves channel.
Yeah, they're hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight.
And then Wild on the Big Stick on
so that's
this very station.
Probably it. Will you have any interest? Do you have any interest in the... by the way, did I see the University of Wisconsin is losing via the dreaded portal a very good defensive player? He's on the move to... Where did I see he's headed? Someplace better.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, that's it.
Yeah, the linebacker.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the portal. They come and they go. The good news is they got their...
Did they get a QB?
They got a QB.
No kidding.
This quarterback from Old Dominion, I'm told, at least I saw it on a tweet from that Pete Thamel. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
I don't follow college sports insiders as closely as I once did. Apparently, that was their biggest target.
No,
so they got him.
That's important.
And then they got a running back from Iowa State who went to my high school in Des Moines, Iowa.
Well, there you
he's
go.
going to Wisconsin as well.
Maybe things are about to look up.
Think about it, or not.
In Madison, maybe not. That's true.
Knowing Wisconsin, they'll probably have a catastrophic injury week 1, and then they'll have a backup, and they'll not be bowl eligible.
My Hoosiers are cleaning up, apparently, in the portal. They got the most highly coveted quarterback. Where is he coming from? Is it TCU, I believe? They've got 2 of the best 3 receivers, allegedly, coming, and they got a couple defensive players. The Empire, it's very quickly going to become an empire. It's very, 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 very clear. They're taking now full advantage of their success and the portal as well. So tonight it's Ole Miss, Miami, and then tomorrow night it's Indiana taking on the Oregon Ducks. We mentioned earlier in the show we didn't have top five at 5, but another head coach has been dismissed, Mike McDaniel from the Miami Dolphins. So now we're at 8, I believe, 8 openings.
Correct. Yep.
Which is a lot, right? That's a quarter of the league.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was asking Garzy this. That seems high to me, but he thinks it's usually the same number every year. That seems a bit high. Also worth noting that apparently the Dallas Cowboys have requested permission to speak with Vikings defensive pass game coordinator Durante Jones, among others. And, I wondered whether it was possible that Jerry Jones, being Jerry Jones, that he'd say, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll break the bank to bring in Brian Flores. I'm so sick of our defense being awful. I'll be glad to make him the highest paid defensive coordinator in league history. Now, that's a lateral move, but I think he could make it, he being B-Flow, because he's not under contract right now, I don't think. So why would he? Maybe it's a fair question because he says he likes it here, et cetera. But we will keep an eye. And so far, it sounds as if, on the record, we have one team that has expressed interest in gaining permission to chat with B-Flow as a head coaching candidate for the Baltimore Ravens job, correct? Mm-hmm. It may well be that that's not going to be the last. It's funny. When the news broke that Pete Carroll was coming back to coaching and he was going to coach the Raiders, I welcomed it. I think the league's has always been more interesting with him in it. I think he's been a very good coach. He may be past it now. I don't know, but it's hard to tell given the dysfunction with the Raiders. They didn't really, their quarterback situation I didn't think was very tenable. They got a lot of other issues, but he is another one of those dismissed, and I don't know if he's going to get another shot. I don't even know if he's looking for a shot. The assumption is John Harbaugh will land, correct? Who's the Cleveland Browns guy who got fired? Stefanski I thought I heard he was a front runner for the Giants, but I don't know if that was before Harbaugh. John Harbaugh became available, not sure. But we'll see how this thing plays out. But when the number gets up to 8, you think the odds just indicate there's a good chance that Flores is going to get another crack at it. Now, you could make the argument he may be judicious about where he is willing to go. You don't want to, on your second time, go to a place where it's going to be really, really hard to win because you might not get a third shot. And I'll be very curious to see, there are a lot of rumors about him maybe with the Raiders. Is that possible? Yeah, I guess it might well be. Maybe the Tom Brady part of it. But you're back to who's your quarterback going to be? You've got to get something going at the quarterback position. 612 guy writes, I walk my dog and listen to you every day at this time. As you solicited stories, I stepped on black ice, did a full backwards spread eagle. No injury. All's well that ends well. Carry on. Well, I'm with you, man. 612 guy. I can feel it. It's not a good feeling, but the most important thing is you survive. You may learn this. You may be too young to recognize it now, but something that does come with age, I think, is a deeper understanding at just how lethal falling can be. It's the stories are out there. It's amazing, and because sometimes it's literally your head, and for all the obvious reasons, that can be dangerous regardless of age. But you spend a lot more time, at least I'm a lot more deliberate. It's not like I can't move, but it's that I'm a lot more deliberate about watching each step, like where I'm going, like I'm going down steps, as opposed to when you're younger, you just go. You just sprint down the steps.
Yeah.
Not worrying about a misstep or slipping or whatever the case may be. As you get older and you learn how many people end up with serious injuries falling in all sorts of ways, whether you're walking, on a bicycle, or whatever the case may be, I think you show a lot more respect for the dangers that are associated with doing exactly that.
I mean, I was moving someone the other day, and I thought there was one more step than there was.
Yes, that's bad, too.
And I fell. I mean, I was
Did you
carrying
tumble?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a giant, like, Tupperware tub, and I fell forward. I stopped, like, 70% of my fall with that, but I still hit my knees very hard. One good nap, and I was over it. So I'm enjoying that while I've got it.
Well, I mean, to show the stupidity of it, or the recklessness of, well, I can't even really say youth, because it wasn't like I was 20 when this happened. I've torn ligaments in my ankles a couple of times, literally not paying attention to the next step. And my ankle kind of collapsing on me, and but it's because I'm going too fast, or I'm not. Okay, there's the next step. Look down there, follow your foot, so it descends correctly. And maybe it's just the klutz in me. That could be it too. 218 guy asks, Dan, do you remember a segment you used to do called Sully, or Salahi? You should bring that back for current events. All-time classic. He's got a better memory than me. I do remember something about it, but I don't remember what the bit was. I don't remember how we presented it. So if 218 guy can remember more detail about it, I will gladly write that down and consider bringing it back, because like many shows on the Fan, we do love to bring things back and run them into the ground over and over and over again. Example, Craig from Boston, Massachusetts. My mother-in-law's death was attributed to a fall. Now, that's a worst case scenario, but the body is weird on what hits at the wrong time, especially if it's the head. It's basically how my father passed away. I just talked to him earlier that night, the same night. I just picked up food. I can't remember where. We were living in Victoria at the time. And just got off the phone with him. And he had been, he was in his office. He was in a condo at that point. And he was standing, and then he realized he was looking at some papers in front of him. Well, it was one of those deals where, you know how sometimes you'll have a stool or a backless chair, and it's right behind you, and you think you can just sort of ease back onto it, but you're not always up high enough, and so you catch just the front end of it. Well, he only caught the front end. It upended on him, and he ended up hitting his head. Now, he didn't black out at that point, but he was worried enough about the bump that he called my sister, because he had 2 heart bypass operations, so he's on a lot of blood thinners. And when you're on blood thinners, you got to worry about stuff like that, about, bleeding in the brain. And sure enough, within 2 hours, he was all but gone, because they did tests. There was blood on the brain. They tried to take some of that pressure off. Worked for a little while, but it came right back, and there were limited options at that point, and he just kind of went. So it's the story I heard from Texter. Now my dad had, like I said, the blood thinners, which made it more likely that something bad would happen. On the other hand, the blood thinners probably kept him alive for a long time. So, everything's a trade-off, but it is a reminder, especially in this kind of weather, of trying at least to give yourself the best shot. One more quick break, and then we'll come back and give you some highlights from today's program, give you the very latest on a couple things that the governor had to say earlier today, and where we are on the A-section story, as well as a couple of other things, and as we prepare you for a Friday program as well. Stay tuned.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
It's brought to you by American Pressure.
218 guy is back with the goods. Man, I appreciate when listeners have a better recollection of things we did a long time ago than the host does. That's gold, man. And he had talked about a segment that we called Suleiman, Sully, or Salehi. The segment was whether someone's actions were more like Nadia Suleiman, Octomom. Look up Octomom if you're curious. Sullenberger, the Miracle on the Hudson guy, or the Salahi couple, the Real Housewives of D.C., that had some outrageous events. That's a really good callback. I hadn't thought of that in a long time, and maybe we will try to bring that back as well. Dan, I've almost died walking downstairs at our home with a laundry basket or someone else that blocks my vision. The reason being we have two golden retrievers who love to leave toys on the stairs. Now, like you, I look before I step. Sorry about your dad's story. Per CDC, falls are the leading cause of injury for adults ages 65 years and older. 1 in 4 older adults report falling every year. Not at all surprised. I'm a physical therapist in a nursing home. 75% of my residents admit due to a fall. Clayton writes, if your Hoosiers make it to the championship round, what are the chances that you and Bozich will be in Miami for the game? Well, speaking of falls, Bozich, who now is retired and has become, I always thought of him mainly as a White Sox rube. He is an even bigger Indiana University football and basketball rube. He has completely lost himself in this story. For me, it's cool. He's completely lost himself in it, but he's not fully recovered from falling. Well, it wasn't really a fall. He was mowing his lawn, ran into a divot, went down, and then made it worse by trying to get up. In the act of getting up, suffered a compound fracture in which the bone pierced the skin. And he's doing much better, but I don't think he feels like he's confident enough to, make that kind of trip at this point. So I don't know if I'll make it, but I will certainly be watching very, very closely. I want to thank 2 outstanding guests today. We were joined by Michael Russo at 5:02. It is hockey night on the Fan tonight. The Wild in Seattle to take on the Kraken. Pregame show 8:45. On the Timberwolves channel tonight, Wolves return to action, hosting. This is the first of a 2-game home-and-home with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think that's a 7 o'clock start, so I'm assuming 6:45 pregame show on the Timberwolves channel. Or is it on the Fan?
No, Timberwolves channel.
Yeah, because you got the Wild game later. That's right. It'll get in the way of it. And then Golden Gopher women's basketball on the Plus with Guardsy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. I don't even know who they're playing tonight. Do you? Is it a Big Ten game?
I don't off the top of my head. I want to say the conference schedule has already started.
Yeah, it has. I'm pretty sure it's a big because they lost at Michigan. I think Michigan came from behind to beat them the other night.
They're playing the Wildcats of Northwestern.
Northwestern Wildcats, who the men beat at Northwestern last week. Man, Maybe I'll make another attempt, even on game day, to have a minute or two with Eric Musselman. Although he's locked in on game day, that might be kind of tough to ask, but we'll try, nevertheless. Also want to thank Michael Hurley, geopolitical big knocker, the Bumper to Bumper program. We got caught up on a number of international stories that we really haven't gotten to yet for all the obvious reasons. And he was excellent as always. He joined us at about 4:15 or so. He's very conscious of how well he does, because he gets worried sometimes, do my stories go on too long? I said, no, we want the stories. We want the historical allusions. That's the value that we think Minnesota's own Michael Hurley, former CIA officer, brings to the broadcast. Texter 612, the feds and ICE have intensified their efforts not to target recent illegals, but many immigrants here lawfully, but happen to be from Central or South America, now brown people. They're targeting roofers, ag workers, drivers, and those that do jobs most of us Americans won't do. My issue has been, as I said, the sweeps that go beyond going after someone with an extensive criminal record. And in fact, I didn't get to this earlier. Let me see if I have time. I've got, 2 minutes left? If not, we can revisit it tomorrow. But I think I saved it. It was a reaction somebody had. What's going on? Here we go. Let's see. No, not about Indiana football. Oh, a callback to the Hurley discussion. Associated Press is reporting that internet access and telephone lines have been cut out in Iran after demonstrators joined protests called by the exiled crown prince. That's a story worth going after. This was a guy responding, I guess, to our show yesterday. I agreed. I was shocked when Lugar basically said there's no real reason for ICE to go after criminal illegals. Like what? Rapists, murderers, gangsters? We want them gone. Let's be very clear about what Andy Lugar said and what I've said repeatedly. Anyone with a criminal record should go. There's not any question about that, as long as we'd like to think proper procedure is being followed in those cases. But so there's not been, if you want to disagree with me or with Andy or whoever regarding this whole issue, that's fair. But don't misrepresent the position that I'm taking. My issue isn't going after rapists, murderers, gangsters, although gangster can be a little bit tricky. My issue is the door-to-door wider sweeps showing up at various business establishments, etc., harassing an Uber driver who had no difficulty establishing his bona fides. The onus shouldn't be on people to establish their bona fides. There should be specific reasons why you are approaching whoever you're approaching. And that's my biggest issue, leaving aside the particulars in this case, in which there's lots of disturbing elements regarding the law enforcement behavior. There's the larger question, as we talked a lot about yesterday, about what these sorts of sweeps make it more likely is going to happen. And that is, sadly, a good chance that there's going to be more tragedy what took place yesterday. So you can be in the opinion that everybody who's illegal should go. You can have that opinion. And you can even say, well, that was the mandate from the president. But don't misrepresent what's been said here regarding what concerns have been expressed, because it has to do with specifically not going after people, but exactly who you're going after and how wide your sweep is and how dangerous that is as well. Thanks for watching. Thank you indeed for listening. Tomorrow, Friday Football Beast, predictions with Gerby. I'm assuming Ben Gessling. Who knows who else? We'll talk to you beginning at 3 o'clock.